yes, that glorious sound that you knew all too well last night. As you went out again after a long, hard work week and you overindulged on Friday night, but who doesn't? From 21 to 81, who doesn't know what that's like? And yes, I know there are some younger than 21 that actually do as well, but that's not legal. And of course, we're all about following the rules and legalities here on Sports Frenzy 2.0. It is time for your Saturday morning hangover cure. So put that sound of an opening beer out of your mind, at least for a while, at least until you get to mid-afternoon here on Saturday, November the 9th, 2024. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Flying solo this week. Your Uncle Dave and I went to see REO Speedwagon this past Wednesday night. Threw off our Sports Frenzy recording schedule a little bit. So this week you get me solo. Next week on the weekend edition, which of course will be November the 16th, you will get our review of REO Speedwagon and Loverboy live November the 6th, Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But I will get you through this Saturday, solo, alone, which is probably what you are, because you probably screwed up, a little too tipsy, didn't say quite the right lines, quite the right things to that beautiful girl sitting next to you at the bar. That's okay. We've all been there. We've all done it. So fry up the bacon. Get the sausage going. Coffee, aspirin, whatever you need to get you through here. I will get you through the next hour plus as I discuss all that's going on in the world of pop culture in our unique, politically incorrect way. Yes, cursing, swearing, nasty, awful things that we never apologize for. We are opinionated and we love it. The only time we apologize is if we have something factually incorrect. But opinions are opinions. Everybody's got one, just like assholes. So why should you apologize for your opinion? Hollywood doesn't. They're going crazy right now because of how the election turned out. We didn't get our way, so we're mad at everybody. We think America's stupid. We'll get to some of that at the end of the show, and you know what that's code for. And I know last week we promised we were going to wind down the election stuff, but it's going to take a couple more weeks. But as always, we start off each and every weekend edition here on Sports Frenzy 2.0 with music, rock and roll. Now, since your Uncle Dave, the Conquistador Dave Height, is not here, I'm going to kind of do things a little bit differently. I tend to try to review a movie that he doesn't have any interest in or music that he doesn't really have a big interest in. Gives me a little bit more freedom. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. But what we're going to do this week in music is I'm going to review, now we've reviewed most of these songs separately. Now that's usually the case when we're going to do an album review. 11, 12 songs, whatever it might be, and we've already heard 3 or 4 of them, and we've reviewed them as they were released as singles earlier in the year, 3 months earlier, 4 months earlier, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of what I'm going to do here briefly. I'm not going to waste your time because we have reviewed most of these songs, but I'm going to review the 3-song EP from Motley Crue, Canceled, as well as the 4 new songs from Tears for Fears on their double live album that just came out, Songs for a Nervous Planet. So we'll start off with the crew. And yes, I know, I just explained it. We've reviewed these three songs separately. I'm going to kind of take them all together just for a minute here, real quick. I'm really disappointed, number one, that they just put out three songs and put it out as an EP. And they're kind of forcing you, if you, like me, like your music in a tangible, physical format. Unfortunately, in this case, they're kind of forcing you to buy it digitally. Because if you buy the three songs digitally, you pay $3 on Amazon or wherever, iTunes, wherever you get your music from. So you can have the entire three-song EP for $3 and then burn yourself a copy, put it on a flash drive, do whatever you do with it. Versus if you want to actually have the liner notes and the cover art, $11. $11. At least on Amazon, $11 for a three-song physical CD version of Canceled. So we know the three songs. Canceled leads things off, followed by Dogs of War, and then Fight for Your Right. Canceled is the best song of the three. Very, very solid effort from the crew. Of course, now getting more acclimated to having John 5 in as the lead guitarist, as Mick Mars was unceremoniously dumped, fired, canned about a year ago, I believe. John 5 is a great guitarist, but he doesn't really add anything to Motley Crue. Motley Crue, I don't want to say they've never been guitar dependent, but if there is a hard rock band out there that is equal parts, Motley Crue is probably as close as you're going to get. Mick Mars was never known for unbelievably wicked, face-melting guitar solos, and neither is John 5. They're competent, they're good at what they do, but Motley Crue is, again, equal parts. It's not like Van Halen, for example. Now, to me, Van Halen was a little bit more equal parts than other people give them credit for, but when you thought of Van Halen, you thought, number one, of guitars, Eddie Van Halen. And even though Michael Anthony was great, Alex Van Halen was great, the rhythm section kind of pushed to the background behind Eddie and whoever the front man du jour was, whether it's David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, and their bombastic personalities. Motley Crue is a little bit more even. Nikki Sixx as a bass player, of course, writes the songs. Vince Neil as a singer leaves a lot to be desired. Tommy Lee might actually be the most out there, well-known member of Motley Crue as the drummer. So the guitar playing doesn't really impact the entire Motley Crue mix as much as it does in other bands. And why I bring that up is because, again, John 5, this is the first new music from Motley Crue featuring John 5. Competent on his end, nothing flashy, nothing spectacular. But again, Canceled is the best song on the EP. It harkens back a little bit to old school, nasty, dirty Motley Crue, but in a good way. Then the first song that was released comes next, Dogs of War. Dogs of War is okay. I wouldn't say it's great. It was a little bit disappointing as it was the first release out of the gates featuring John 5. Not terrible, not great. And then, of course, we all know the third song on this EP is their unnecessary, the Crue's unnecessary, cover of Fight for Your Right, of course, the Beastie Boys classic. That's a song nobody should mess with. I'm sorry. I have rules about remaking songs. A song like All Along the Watchtower is open for interpretation, and we've heard so many different great artists make it their own. That's not how I feel about Fight for Your Right. That is a Beastie Boys song, will always be a Beastie Boys song, and there's really not a lot you can do to change it or make it better. You can try, like Motley Crue, but I think it's a fruitless effort. And Motley Crue doesn't really do anything. Oh, they changed the words. Oh, they changed it from the Beastie Boys to the Motley Boys. Oh boy, creative. They just should never have even attempted this. Maybe live in concert could be a different story. And I'm sure that's where this idea was born. I'm sure they've played it live. I haven't seen the Crue live in a few years. So I think it would probably work better in concert than it does recorded like this. So overall, canceled the EP, the 3 songs. If you are a die-hard Motley Crue fan, I would say go ahead and grab it. If you're a casual Motley Crue fan, I don't think you're really going to like it or care. And if you're not a Motley Crue fan, this is definitely not going to win you over. Now, if you've been listening the last couple of weeks, you know your Uncle Dave and I have been arguing about 2.5 when it comes to a rating. We rate on a scale of 0 to 4 frenzies. Just like stars, except cooler. And we've kind of lately been wondering if 2.5 is a cop-out, because 2.5 for us is right there at the cutoff line, whether you like something and recommend it or whether you don't. So what I will give you, I'm going to try to avoid, and I'll probably end up talking more on the podcast next week with Dave about if we're going to put in some kind of a strict rule. Luckily, when it comes to Motley Crue and the EP canceled, I can only give it 2 frenzies. I can't recommend it wholeheartedly. Like I said, if you're a die-hard Motley Crue fan, a completist, then you'll probably want it. Otherwise, I would say it's probably not worth your time, outside of the song canceled. And then we move on to Tears for Fears, the 4 new songs on their new double live album. Songs for a Nervous Planet. Now, I will point out again, as I am trying to look out for you, the consumer, as I said, Motley Crue and Canceled, if you wanted to buy the actual CD, was a absolute total ripoff. The flip side, the other side of things is true for Tears for Fears and their new live album. $15, 2 CDs. Not bad at all. Including, again, 4 new songs, which we're going to run through right here. Now, the difference between the Motley Crue songs, we had reviewed all of those before. Here with the 4 new songs on Songs for a Nervous Planet, we've only reviewed 2 of them, so I get a little bit of fresh ground here to cover 2 of the songs that we have never discussed here before on the weekend edition. So at the beginning of the album are the 4 new tracks before you get into the concert. So we start off with Say Goodbye to Mom and Dad. Not bad, but it's kind of mediocre. There's whistling in it. That's really all I can say to describe something different or interesting about it. It's not terrible It just doesn't reach out and grab you. There's nothing really catchy about it. Let's put it that way. This sounds like a song that was left on the cutting room floor from some previous recording sessions that didn't make the cut, and it's understandable as to why. But then the second song in is the excellent lead-off single, The Girl That I Call Home. We've talked about it. It is by far the best of the 4 new songs on Songs for a Nervous Planet. It's reminiscent of old school Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair, Sowing the Seeds of Love, that era. Very, very good song. Then we get the most eccentric, weird song out of the 4, and that usually means the worst. Emily Said flaunts Tears for Fears' love for the Beatles. Roland Orthobell and Kurt Smith have made no bones about the fact that they are heavily, heavily influenced by the Beatles. Emily Said sounds like a tribute to the Beatles. The duo, they're wearing their Beatles love on their sleeves. You can hear the influence of Sgt. Pepper. The song has that overproduction that the Beatles were guilty of in their druggy era. They're in Yellow Submarine and Sgt. Pepper, that era. There's even a line in Emily Said referencing Strawberry Skies. So there you go. And then there's even a kids chorus at one point. A bunch of kids start singing along. It's just an over-the-top tribute, at least that's how I read it, an over-the-top tribute to the Beatles. And it just really didn't do anything for me. So I would definitely take a hard pass on Emily Said. I will say I appreciate the ambition and the effort. Nothing wrong with an epic fail once in a while. At least it shows you're trying. You're not phoning it in. Then finally, the second single, 4th song here in sequence at the beginning of Songs for a Nervous Planet, Astronaut. Now, we've reviewed Astronaut in the past, but I do want to add something in. This song gets better the more you listen to it. Now, it's mellow. It's got a jazz feel to it, which I kind of like. Every once in a while, I do like to mellow out a little bit. But they were very smart. It was obvious to them out of the 4 songs that they were going to tack on to this live album that they were going to release the 2 far superior songs first as the 2 lead singles, is what they did. So I love The Girl That I Call Home. Really starting to love Astronaut a lot. Say Goodbye to Mom and Dad hasn't gotten to me yet. There might be a faint chance that down the road, after I listen to it 7, 8, 9 times, that it might start to get better. I don't think it will, but there's a chance. And then, like I told you, Emily Said is just something completely different. So now, as opposed to Motley Crue, where I'm reviewing the entirety of the work, even though it was only 3 songs, here I'm cutting out 4 songs from a double live album. So in a way, I feel like I'm kind of being an asshole, but I don't see how it'd be fair to review 4 new songs and then mix that review in with Tears for Fears singing their greatest hits. It doesn't seem right or fair. So I'm going to review the 4 new songs separately. In total, the four, I'm going to treat them like an EP, just like Motley Crue. In this case, once again, trying to stay away from 2.5, even though I'm really leaning towards 2.5 frenzies here. I will give the four new songs on Songs for a Nervous Planet, a week 3 frenzies. I do think you've got two very strong songs, one and one that's very quirky and odd. It's just good enough for me to recommend. If you're not into Tears for Fears, I would probably say stay away. But if a casual fan or a diehard fan will probably enjoy these four songs very much, for the most part. So, stay away from Motley Crue. Go ahead and check out Tears for Fears. Now, we're still working on next week, outside, of course, when it comes to music, REO Speedwagon and Loverboy in concert. That's already set in stone. I'm gonna pop a surprise. I love to do this, whether you're listening to the sports edition or the weekend edition here on Saturday mornings. We don't compare notes. We try to do things so we get honest reactions from each other, surprising, anger sometimes. So what I'm going to do, I know he's not going to listen to this, so I'll tell you a secret. The Grammy nominees were just announced. And usually I don't give two fucks about the Grammys. The Grammys are possibly even more clueless than the idiots who run the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But there are still a couple categories that are interesting in the Grammys. Best rock album, best rock song. There's about 4 of them. Metal, best metal performance. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bounce them off the Conquistador. I'm gonna throw them by your Uncle Dave next Saturday morning. Just off the top, without telling him I'm going to do it, and see what kind of reaction I get from him and how his reaction compares to mine. The only difference is going to be that I already know who they are, and I've already kind of formed an opinion about all of it, for better or for worse. He will only have seconds to think about his feelings and his opinions on the subject. So that's what's going to make it fun. So you don't want to miss that when it comes to music on next weekend's weekend edition. Now, as far as TV and streaming goes, we're going to have a big episode next week for you. So I'm going to kind of keep it brief here on TV and streaming as well. I do have a lot of news that I will pass along here in a few minutes, and then that will lead into my featured movie review of the week. If you guys have been listening over the last 3 or 4 weeks, you know right now we have 4 shows that we're watching. We usually watch the same shows. Usually. Right now we are in sync. Every once in a while one of us will branch off and watch something the other one doesn't want to have anything to do with. But right now we're locked in on 4 shows. I finally caught up on Tracker, the one phenomenal, great network TV show that's out there right now, based on the books by Jeffrey Deaver. And we've been talking about this ever since I started watching it, trying to catch up with season 1, and now we're into season 2 over the last month. Number one, when you base a series or a movie on a book, you're usually doing something right. You've already got the core story there. You've already got fully formed characters there. So the fact that CBS had the guts to do this, I applaud them for it. Now, they can't make it quite as edgy as something like Reacher. Of course, Reacher is on Prime Video. The rules are a little bit less strict. It's almost cable, basically. Pay cable rules where you can curse, you can swear. Um, Usually they don't throw nudity in there. But Coulter Shaw, the main character of Tracker, of course, they have to play by different rules, so he doesn't really get to curse or swear. But I'm telling you what, it is an amazingly good show for being a network TV show, because I hate network TV shows. They're not as good as they used to be. Yes, again, grumpy old man looking back at his ute. 70s and the 80s, even the early 90s. This is kind of a throwback show, though, structured a little bit more. Yes, there are politically correct aspects to it, but outside of that, structured more like a classic 70s or early 80s cop show. Different case every week, different missing person that Coulter Shaw has to track down. And the first 4 episodes, that's where we're at right now. As you listen to this, episode 5 of the second season will air tomorrow night on Sunday, November the 10th. The first 4 episodes have had some wild storylines. And then we have also learned a few things more about Coulter Shaw. Coulter Shaw, as one of his co-workers, if you want to call him that, he's got people that do research for him. He's got his tech guy, Bobby. He's got the people who actually, in the season 1, it was a pair of, I'm just being honest here, a pair of lesbians are the ones that help filter out and track down the cases, the missing people for him to find. Now, it is based on reward. And this is another thing I really like about this. This is not goody two-shoes stuff. Coulter Shaw does not work for free. Coulter Shaw expects a reward, but only when he has successfully located the missing person he has been hired to find. So you get beyond the checkbox stuff. Coulter Shaw's character, one of the lesbians, calls him a lone wolf, or I think it was one. And again, I'm just stating facts. They're lesbians. It was either one of the lesbians or his lawyer friend that he works with, Rainey. She might have been the one. She might have said lone wolf is going to lone wolf. Coulter Shaw's character, anyway, is very closed off, very private, but as the viewer, we get a little more insight into what's going on behind the scenes with him. And the first episode of season 2, we got a lot of insight into something that's going on with him that's probably going to come back here fairly soon as another background story. We've got a couple background stories, continuing story threads. One involving his brother, played by the great Jensen Ackles, his brother Russell, who we learned about at the beginning of the series, has come into play now and is starting to make an occasional appearance on the show. So anyway, sorry. I know Dave and I talked about a lot of this a week or two ago. So Tracker. We're also sadly trying to slowly work our way through the final season 6 of What We Do in the Shadows. Cannot believe that it's coming to an end. Such a funny, wicked show. Politically incorrect, and I love it. So we don't want to tear through this because there's nothing coming after the end of season 6. And of course, this is on FX, and that means it's also on Hulu. But they dropped 3 episodes the first night. And we're like, what? I don't want to burn through 3 episodes when we know the entire season is probably only going to be somewhere between 10 and 13 episodes. I don't want to waste 3 episodes first night out. So, trying to watch this a little bit more slowly than we would normally. I personally have only watched the first 2 episodes of the season. I will probably watch a couple more this weekend. Um, so we'll be reviewing that here over the next month or so. Now, next week, these are the 2 shows I really wanted to just bounce off of you, let you know. Our reviews next week will be complete season reviews for these 2 shows. We will have our final review of season 1 of The Penguin on HBO Max. Of course, we have praised Colin Farrell up and down for the transformation. You cannot believe, looking at a picture of Colin Farrell, that Oz Cobb is actually Colin Farrell. So he is the highlight, should be the entire only focal point of The Penguin. But of course, we've been complaining for weeks about Sophia Falcone and how they're trying to make her an equal character in this, and it's still not a bad show, but some of the ratings and the reviews I've seen online for this, I mean, IMDb's review is just ridiculous. It's almost, I think it was an 8.8 the last time I looked, which is ridiculously high. It is nowhere near that good. Okay, I can think of plenty of other shows that were better that don't get that kind of respect and admiration. But anyway, the final episode of the season, episode 8, drops this coming Sunday as well. We mentioned episode 5 of Tracker, season 2. Episode 8, the finale of season 1 of The Penguin. This probably is it for The Penguin. I don't know if they will come back and do a season 2, since this is supposed to lead into the next Batman movie featuring Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves. This is Matt Reeves' universe, separate from Christopher Nolan, separate from what James Gunn is doing with the DC movies right now. But again, tomorrow night, as you're listening to this on Saturday the 9th, tomorrow night, November the 10th, will be the series finale, however you want to look at it, of The Penguin. And we'll have a full review for you next Saturday morning. We will also have our full review next Saturday morning of Teacup, which is wrapped up on Peacock. And do not let the name fool you. This is a very intense, weird, wild. It's a riff. I will tell you this. It's a riff on Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Thing, is what it is. Very similar. The paranoia of what's inhabiting whose body. So in that sense, it's not groundbreakingly original, but it's still very entertaining, very cool. So Dave and I will review not only The Penguin, we'll close the book on The Penguin, we'll also close the book on Teacup. Just like The Penguin, I do not believe Teacup is going to be going on further than this season. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure this is a one and done. Now, I did plan on, for you wrestling fans out there, this is something else I tend to like to do when Dave's not around. He does not despise wrestling. I'll give him credit for that. He tolerates wrestling. We're even talking about when WrestleMania hits Indianapolis here in the next year or two. I believe 2026 is the first window of opportunity for Indianapolis for that. Could be 2027. But we're talking about making a weekend and maybe grabbing a couple other guys and going down for WrestleMania. But that being said, I'm kind of out on wrestling right now for a couple reasons. Number one, there's only so many hours in a day. And when football season starts, you guys know we do a sports edition, obviously, duh, the name. We started off as sports, we still do sports. Every Thursday morning, those episodes drop. But when football season kicks in, there are a couple shows that I cannot keep up on. On Patrol Live, I tend to fall back on, and my WWE viewing tends to suffer as well. So I was thinking this week I was going to review Crown Jewel for you, but I didn't get to watch all of it. I know a few things that happened of what I watched, and then I heard some rumors and spoilers about what else happened. Of course, the Bloodline Civil War was the first match, and now there are hints that Sami Zayn might come back and join the original Bloodline. We'll see how that goes. But my other complaint about wrestling is that if it was, and we're just talking WWE here, not AEW, it's getting, they don't have things set up right now the way I like it in terms of the women's division is weak, and I've heard other people, I've read other articles that agree with this. The women's division right now is unfortunately very, very weak. Even though you have Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax and Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, there's something that's just not meshing there. Something that's just not working. And I don't know if it's now with Hunter Helmsley being fully in charge of creative, but there's just some. I think what they need to do is they need to turn Jade Cargill heel. I don't think she works very well as a babyface. I just don't. And this whole new Judgment Day thing isn't really working very well. Pushing Liv Morgan into the Judgment Day and forcing Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest out. I don't think it's working out as well as they'd hoped. And then on the men's side, I'm not a fan of Cody Rhodes, so right there I'm disinterested in the World Championship unless you get Roman Reigns back in there, which I think they will. I think that's pretty obvious. But there's just problems all through the WWE with the storylines, and now all of a sudden they're trying to resuscitate the tag team division, bringing in these brand new guys, what are they, the Motor City Machine Guns, and they get right out of the gate win the tag team titles. Ugh. And I am not a fan of the Wyatt Six. I'm sorry, I know he's passed, but I never liked Bray Wyatt as a character. I know everybody was in love with Bray Wyatt and thought that whole deal was really cool and creepy and weird and neat, and I've just never been a big fan of it. So the stream of consciousness, there you go. That's where I stand right now with wrestling. That's why you're not getting a Crown Jewel recap this week. Maybe next week. Maybe. But by then it'll probably be a little bit dated and too late, so we'll see. Might just wait and catch up on the next premium live event for you. Well, like I said, there's some other entertainment news, TV and streaming and movie news to get to. Some of this stuff you guys are going to be like, oh, that's not really all that interesting, but deal with it. I mentioned in the music segment that we're going to have some fun with your Uncle Dave next week and get his reaction to the rock, only the rock and metal Grammy nominees. The Grammys are moving. This is kind of a big deal. I'm not a Grammys person, but I understand the historical significance of the Grammys, even though they vote like retarded monkeys and don't understand music at all. Remember, these are the people that gave a heavy metal Grammy to Jethro Tull over Metallica. So that should tell you all you need to know about how they're so out of touch, truly out of touch with what good music is. But anyway, the Grammys have been on CBS for over 50 years. And of course, Disney wrote a big, fat, nasty check. So now the Grammys are going to be moving to ABC, Hulu, and Disney Plus for at least 10 years, starting in 2027 through 2036. And then AMC networks must be doing fairly well. Must be doing okay. $42 million cash transaction where they bought full controlling interest of the BBC. So AMC Networks now completely and totally owns 100% of the BBC after a recent cash transaction. The $42 million bought them 50.1%. AMC Networks already owned 49.9% interest in the BBC, so now they own it all. Lock, stock, and two smoking barrels. 100%. This is one I wanted to save for the Conquistador because he is such a huge, massive NASCAR fan. But I can't wait. Do we really need a sequel to Days of Thunder? Do we really? We might get one. Rumors are out there that Tom Cruise is in early negotiations to set up a Days of Thunder sequel. Now here's the thing. I didn't really know how well a sequel to Top Gun would fly, no pun intended, and ends up being one of the biggest hit movies ever. So could a Days of Thunder sequel actually do very, very well? We've seen hit and miss with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, people think everything he does is box office gold. That's not necessarily true. His movies and his name, his cachet, will bring in a certain amount of people. But if you remember when they tried to resuscitate the Universal movie monster universe, and they had Tom Cruise doing The Mummy, that really didn't do all that well. So nothing is guaranteed. And I just don't know how many people out there would want to see a sequel to a NASCAR movie that was not one of Tom Cruise's more popular movies. And then we mentioned last week in our dumbass segment the idiot daughter of George A. Romero putting together a movie called Queens of the Dead about zombies attacking a warehouse drag party. And of course, we were railing on how that destroys and cheapens and diminishes the legacy of the great George A. Romero and his Living Dead movies. Well, now we've got good news this week to kind of offset that dumbassery. We're going to get the 7th and what they're saying is the final movie in George A. Romero's Living Dead film universe. Yes, thank God they at least had enough common sense to tell Tina Romero to go blow. That movie is not going to count as part of your father's legacy, even though you're still doing a zombie movie and cheapening his name. Twilight of the Dead. Twilight of the Dead will be the 7th and final Living Dead movie. It will begin shooting in 2025. We've got a few trailers out there. You guys know I've been trying to keep you up to date every week on new trailers, so you can go check them out for some interesting things. Things that we think here on the weekend edition look to be cool, crazy, weird, worth your time. Not a waste of your time. So we've got a new trailer for Squid Game 2, which of course is coming out on Netflix at the end of 2024. There is a new slasher flick coming out around Valentine's Day of 2025 called Heart Eyes. And you know, we're always suckers here on the weekend edition for a good, sleazy, cheap slasher flick. So check out that. And then, of course, there for TV stuff, I mean, Squid Game 2 is technically TV and streaming, but network TV. We talked about Tracker and how somehow, some way they made Tracker interesting, cool as a network TV show. So I'm hoping for the same thing here because I love Dennis Leary. I think Dennis Leary is hysterical. Rescue Me, if you remember that show from FX, was great. So now Dennis Leary is coming back to TV in a comedy. Like I said, though, it's a network TV comedy. So I believe this is on Fox coming up. Going Dutch. Again, the great Dennis Leary returning to TV. So I'm very excited about that. And then if you didn't know already, because it's been out, I don't even know if it's still out in theaters, but it was out in theaters last week. Re-released. The phenomenal, great, if you haven't seen it yet, you're out of your bleeping mind. Oh, wait. I don't have to bleep myself. We can curse here. You're out of your fucking minds if you have not seen Godzilla -1. It was just re-released into theaters a few weeks before it hits Blu-ray and DVD. Why, you might ask? It coincided with the 70th anniversary of Godzilla. So November the 1st, Godzilla -1 hit the theaters again for a limited run. And of course, we love Godzilla. Well, I should qualify that. You'll find out in a few minutes. But we do. Godzilla is awesome, especially Godzilla -1, spectacular. The old school Godzilla stuff, always fun. Reminds you of your childhood, reminds you of good times. Wanton destruction. No regard for buildings, people, cars, bridges, any man-made structure. But to celebrate, along with Godzilla -1 coming out, to celebrate the 70th anniversary of Godzilla, I have my review finally for you kids. Months and months in the making. Basically because I was a little worried about what I was seeing in the trailers and the movie posters, and I have not been a big fan of Hollywood's depiction of Godzilla and King Kong. But finally, I have my review of Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire. So is it Godzilla times Kong, The New Empire? Why couldn't they just do Godzilla versus Kong, The New Empire? I don't understand this X. Godzilla multiplied by Kong? Ugh. Well, this review is going to be fun, and you'll be able to hear it on Spotify, Good Pods, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to check out the Facebook page. As always, you're welcome to comment. Whether you want to comment on the Facebook page, comment directly onto one of our podcast platforms, we welcome your comments. We do. We do. And we'll fight back if we don't like what you say. We don't back down, as the great Tom Petty once sang. Okay. Once again, 70th anniversary of Godzilla, so I finally sat down on HBO Max and watched, I'm just going to call it Godzilla vs. Kong, The New Empire. Making my own rules. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Oh boy, this was not good. And I don't know why I subject myself to these movies. And maybe now it's worse than ever because of the greatness of Toho Studios' Godzilla -1, which showed us roughly a year ago what a great Godzilla movie looked like. But we've given Godzilla over to Hollywood and King Kong over to Hollywood, and they have, for the most part, just botched this whole thing. Now, the idea of Monarch, the organization set in charge of monitoring all the Titans, all the beastly creatures, that's kind of an interesting minor part of what they're doing right now with Godzilla and Kong. But the script is terrible for this movie. The scripts have been bad going back as long as I can remember. Through Godzilla vs. Kong, the last one, Skull Island. They're just, Hollywood, anything they touch turns to shit. They think they're smart, they think they're cool, they think they're creative, and a lot of them are, and a lot of them aren't. And unfortunately, the people that they keep putting in charge of these Godzilla movies, what do they call, I don't even know if they call them the Monsterverse, whatever they call these movies about the Titans, you can actually do something to, number one, you don't have to be politically correct, but this is another movie where it's jammed down your throat. PC, PC, PC. Because now we got to have a big part of this particular movie involving sign language. And we've got the god-awful cast of all time here. Rebecca Hall, I used to kind of like Rebecca Hall as an actress, but she's really become just a terrible actress. She leads the pack here again. Dan Stevens, he's okay sometimes, I guess. And you got the nut job podcaster who's supposed to be the comic relief, and he's not funny at all. He's just an idiot doofus who once in a while spouts something out of the clear blue sky, you know, where he goes, "Oh, look how smart I really am. I figured this out and you guys didn't." And meanwhile, he's running around shrieking and screaming like a little girl. But what are we really here for? Even though I would like to see one of these movies actually give us some human characters who are more than just cardboard cutouts, we're here for the monsters. We're here for the special effects, the wanton death and destruction. And that was something while I was watching the new Empire. I'm wondering about this, and I know this has been a part of these movies ever since the beginning. And it's willing suspension of disbelief. I get it. That's a core tenet to motion pictures, especially motion pictures involving monsters, superheroes, almost anything outside of a true life drama. But for some reason, this one struck me just particularly a little bit more craven, in that these monsters just destroy, I mean, level a couple of major cities across the globe, and destroying treasured monuments, treasured buildings, and everybody's just like, "Oh well, this is the world we live in now." And how could any human being in these movies, in these worlds, go to the beach or just act like, it's just another normal day, when they never know when a titan's going to rise up and just level their city, and we never see people getting crushed and killed. And you know that there are millions upon millions of people getting killed in these battles between the titans, yet we all just kind of go, "Oh well, it's so much fun to watch Godzilla and Mothra and Kong as they fight the bad titans and the bad creatures and the bad monsters." I'm not trying to suck all the fun out of it, because believe me, this movie did that on its own. Just something to think about. Just something to think about. When you go see a slasher movie, it's the same thing on a much, much smaller scale, where, you get the wanton destruction, murder, death of all these hapless teenagers. But I guess the difference is, again, smaller scale, and the teenagers, for the most part, are so stupid they almost act like they deserve it. So anyway, the background, I won't spoil too much for you on this. The background of Godzilla and Kong, the new Empire, is that right now Kong is living in lonely seclusion in this Middle Earth or Central Earth or whatever they call it in the movie. Basically at the core of the Earth, there's a different world. If you've seen the last movie, you know what I'm talking about. And then Godzilla is up on the surface protecting people, humanity, from attacks from other titans. And then, of course, Kong is lonely, and Kong needs help. So there's these portals that he can go up to the surface, and Monarch can help him if he needs medical attention or whatever he might need. But when he comes up to the surface, it alerts Godzilla, and Godzilla immediately goes into attack mode. So then there's a threat in this Middle Earth core jungle world that Kong inhabits. And I find the main villain slash monster to be very comical in that it almost sounds like they're trying to play off of The Lion King. You'll have to watch the movie or read a review if you don't want to waste your time. I don't blame you. I don't, but I do not like spoilers. I hate spoilers. I will always do my best to not spoil any major plot points for you. So what it boils down to is, of course, there's a team up with Godzilla and Kong, and they end up on the surface fighting a couple of bad monsters, bad titans. And then there's a couple classic monsters from past movies that surface that look like they're going to come into play in future movies. Which I'm sure there will be future movies, because this movie cleaned up at the box office, made almost $200 million just here in the United States, in North America with Canada. So that's the best that any of these movies have done here in North America domestically since, I believe, Peter Jackson's King Kong, which made a little bit over 200 million. And that's been quite a while. So, they're very, very happy now. The pandemic's over. They don't have to release these movies at the same time in the theaters as they air them on HBO Max. So all is good in the world of the Titans and Godzilla and Kong and this monster universe they've created with Monarch. But unfortunately, the movie stinks. It just stinks. My attention wandered throughout it because it just wasn't that good. And at times, it was silly and stupid. I probably would have tolerated it more again if it had learned a lesson. Hollywood never learns their lesson. But if it had learned a lesson from Godzilla -1. Now, I know production-wise they were probably made at the same time, but keep the action on this. If we're going to do the wanton destruction of all of humanity and civilization and all these beautiful, great cities, then just do it. Go all out and do it. Stop with this weird sci-fi, bizarre, almost metaphysical world in the core of the earth, the center of the earth. It's just silly. And the overindulgence on the special effects dehumanizes it even more than having, again, cardboard cutout characters playing the few humans that are in these movies, and then, of course, acting like human life is absolutely worthless because millions of people are getting destroyed and killed in every movie, and nobody seems to really care all that much. And they seem to be oblivious about it. So let's go to the beach, let's drive our cars around like we don't live in constant fear each and every day of a quick, painful, crushing death from a Titan. But again, bad acting, bad writing. Godzilla is the saving grace, I guess I would say. He still looks very cool. What they do with him here in this movie is pretty awesome. Kong seems to take up a little bit more of the screen time. His monster, that monster is a little bit more central to the plot than Godzilla. Kong's fine too, but Godzilla still looks really good. They really still do a great job with how they make him look. Kong now, they're aging Kong, so Kong's old. He's almost got a gray beard now. So, I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it all that much. It's not fun like the Godzilla movies used to be way back in my childhood. It wasn't fun like Godzilla minus one. I apologize if I say Godzilla minus zero. I mix up the one with color and the one without color. Because remember, they released Godzilla minus one first in color, and then it was Godzilla minus zero minus color. So I apologize if I get them mixed up. But even though there was death and destruction in that movie, they took it seriously, but still somehow made it awe-inspiring, visually stunning, made it a spectacle that you could enjoy, a true motion picture event. Whereas these latest Hollywood Godzilla and Kong movies are just hot garbage. So I will give Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, I will give it 1.5 frenzies. Really not good at all. Really not good at all. And the final thing I'll say before we move on to moments of silence is they seem to be making these movies more for kids. And I guess that's fine to a certain extent, but the pattern is out there now that I'm noticing that more and more of these movies are being tailored to the kids. And there is less and less intelligent filmmaking out there for the adults. And at some point, yeah, and everybody goes, well, look at Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer wasn't all that good, okay? It was very mediocre. But you're getting fewer action movies. Look at what happened with John Wick. Okay? Look at what happened with that series, how it grew and grew and grew with every installment 1 through 4. Because it was intelligent, they were fun, they were cool. They built a universe, a world with John Wick, the Baba Yaga, with the Continental. It was interesting, intelligent, creative. What they're doing with these Godzilla movies is just stupid. The intelligence level is so low that this is why I'm saying they're probably, without even realizing it, making these movies for kids, because I don't see how anybody above the age of 10 or 11 watches one of these movies and goes, well, that was really thought-provoking and interesting. Because they're not fun. They're not really all that much fun for adults. There you go. Moments of silence. A couple in the world of entertainment to discuss. Legendary record producer Quincy Jones has passed away. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family and his friends. If not the greatest, one of the greatest of all time. And then going back again to my youth, my younger days, when it comes to TV. I used to watch on occasion. I wouldn't say I watched every episode every week, but I got sucked in every once in a while and would watch L.A. Law, which was a very successful TV show back in the day. And one of the main characters was played by Alan Rachins. I hope I'm saying that right. Is it Rachins? Anyway, one of the central characters in L.A. Law, he has passed away, the actor. So thoughts and prayers to his family and friends as well. And I apologize for not getting the name quite right. So, like I alluded to earlier in this show, the election is over. The election is done, thank God. Even though now we still got idiots in the media, idiot celebrities voicing their displeasure in the most vile, disgusting ways possible. Hopefully something I heard here today on the news is true, that they are starting to organize some kind of help group to show people how to leave the country for good and move to Canada. Because it's about time you put your money where your mouth is. All you celebrities, all you people who whine and cry because you didn't get your way. I'm going to leave America. America sucks now. And as Roger Clemens, the great, should be in the Hall of Fame pitcher, said, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. All I want is every president to be elected fairly, to do the right thing for the American people. And that doesn't seem to be the priority anymore. The priority seems to be me, selfish, selfish, selfish. I'm going to cry and whine like a little baby when I don't get my way, even when it comes to an election. So we're still going to have a little bit of fallout here in the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week. Here for a little while longer, a couple more weeks. You're going to have some of these celebrities, these idiots, these late night hosts are going to end up inevitably saying or doing something that's going to qualify them for the Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week. So we've got five contestants this week. Now it's going to be a little tricky because usually I've got the conquistador, your Uncle Dave, here to help me out and help pick the one true dumbass of the week. So I might need some help from you guys. Once again, feel free to comment on the Facebook page or directly on one of our podcast platforms. But unfortunately, 4 of the 5 are going to tie into the election. So let's start off with the one that is not tied into politics. So first up, a musician who I used to have a lot of respect for, and then when he broke up one of the greatest rock and roll trios of all time, he became a pretentious, selfish asshole. And his music was never as good as it was with his former band. Of course, I'm talking about Sting and the Police. Now, when Sting broke up the Police, they ended on a high note with Synchronicity. Some bands probably envy that. But it was kind of a shame to me that they ended when they did, because it just seemed like they should have had so much more music left in them as a trio. I know they didn't necessarily all get along very well, and I still think Sting was the main reason why. His ego, he thought he was the be-all, end-all, and I don't need Andy Summers, and I don't need Stuart Copeland. So he went off on his own, did very, very well for himself. I thought his music was okay, sometimes very good, sometimes very underwhelming. But we talk about this all the time. We talk about the concept of, I'm going to go solo because I'm the biggest name in the band, and this way I make all the money and I don't have to split it. I don't have to share it 3 ways or 4 ways. So again, I have not really held Sting in high regard ever since he left the Police. But now he might have sunk to his lowest level ever. Now, we talked about recently here how he set up a new power trio. Again, why don't you just call up Andy Summers and Stuart Copeland? But no, he sets up the Sting 3.0 power trio with a new guitarist and a new drummer. I'm sure he doesn't have to pay them much at all compared to what he'd have to pay Andy Summers and Stuart Copeland. So that in of itself was a very bad misstep, in my opinion, for Sting. Maybe it adds a little more energy and punch to the music, but it still ain't the Police. So now, what does he do? Sting is joining The Voice. Oh, God. Putting himself on a level with Reba McEntire. I mean, Reba's nice. She seems like a wonderful human being. But when it comes to the annals of music history, not really up there near the top. Supposedly Sting was, or is. Who else is on The Voice? Blake Shelton? I mean, come on. Gwen Stefani? So Sting is now lowering himself to the point he must really need the money badly. Lowering himself to the point where he's going to be a mega mentor on The Voice. Congratulations, Sting. You sold out, and that makes you a Red Foreman dumbass. Now, as I said, you're sick of politics, I'm sick of politics, but there's just some things I cannot ignore. So unfortunately, we have these last four entertainment, pop culture dumbasses that kind of tie in to the election and to politics. And I swear we're going to wind down on this in the next week or two. Promise. But you guys know by now, Saturday Night Live hasn't been funny in over a decade. But they have become increasingly more slanted and political. And then they crossed the line the Saturday before the election, where they had Kamala Harris on the show, along with Maya Rudolph, who plays her in a lot of the sketches, past and present. The problem is there are rules in place, NBC, Kamala, SNL. There are rules in place that say specifically you have to give equal time to the other candidates. So guess what? The FCC actually did their job. And they threatened everybody involved with fines, violations. So NBC had to turn around the next night, Sunday, and give Donald Trump equal time, gave him free ads on the NASCAR race, at the end of the NASCAR race, and during Sunday Night Football. I do believe that more people probably watch Sunday Night Football than watch Saturday Night Live. So ironically, it turns out to be a huge victory for Donald Trump. Of course, that would not be his only victory of the last week. But it makes Kamala Harris, NBC, and Saturday Night Live collectively a group of dumbasses. Now, you would think, with the way things have been going here the last few days, Kamala Harris is acting like she's handing over the baton. She's passing the power of the presidency to Donald Trump. But we seem to forget that Joe Biden is still actually the president of the United States. And Joe Biden is still acting weird and creepy in the last few months before he has to bow out, fade out into the sunset. Of course, you know the White House has these holiday events to try to show everybody, hey, we're not all serious. We just don't call people garbage. We also try to have fun, too. So we had this Halloween event at the White House. And now, of course, we've heard the stereotypical politician, the cliche from decades in the past and eras gone by, kissing the babies, right? A politician goes out and kisses babies. That's the cliche. Well, not Joe Biden. Joe Biden thinks it's playful and fun to bite babies. Acting like he's eating them. Some people probably go, oh, isn't that cute? Isn't that just... It's creepy. It's weird and creepy. And he needs to stop this kind of behavior. He does weird things with women and young girls. And now he's biting babies. Instead of kissing them gently on the head, he's got to bite them. I'm playfully eating them. Sounds to me like something out of Hansel and Gretel. And it makes, in my opinion, it makes our soon-to-be former president a dumbass. Once again, the guy has no filter on his behavior. A guy I used to really like. And I've always taken pride in the fact that I can separate the art from the artist. I always use the example of Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey's a creep. Kevin Spacey is a weirdo. But I think he's a phenomenal actor. He's one of my favorite actors, but he is scum. I'm sure there's probably people out there that feel like that about Alec Baldwin or Robert De Niro. So now we've got Will Ferrell falling into this camp. Now, Will Ferrell hasn't really been all that funny in quite a few years. I can't remember the last really good Will Ferrell movie I saw. I remember a few years back he did one with Amy Poehler called The House that looked like it was going to be really good and was absolutely awful. And now we got to put up with Will Ferrell, doing these silly, stupid PayPal commercials. And I wonder about Will Ferrell. He seems like he's always kind of nervous and edgy and, he's sweating all the time, and you just wonder with behavior like that what's going on with him. And now recently it's gotten worse because he's entered into the political realm. Now last week he was a dumbass because he dared to mock Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA. I don't care about the song one way or the other, but I know damn well that's one of the few songs out there you don't fuck with. Because you're going to piss off a whole lot of people. That's why you don't change the national anthem. It makes you a dumbass. This week, Will Ferrell, though, decided to put up some ads, some video ads, for Kamala Harris. And that's fine. Vote for whoever you want. That's your choice. But don't do an ad and basically threaten voters who are not going to vote for Kamala. You have to go out and watch. I know this is one of those on a podcast, I can't do it justice. One of those where you'd have to dig it up on the internet if they're still out there now that the election's over. I don't know. But somebody told Will Ferrell this is really going to be funny. And it just came off creepy, weird, and scuzzy to threaten people into voting for Kamala Harris. And he's not the only one that's been doing it. And again, next week, I already know we've got a couple lined up for next week that are going to show you celebrities, entertainers that have gone off the deep end because of the results of the election. But Will Ferrell, for 2 weeks in a row now, you have really let me down. I don't have any respect for you as a person anymore. I can still find your old movies and your old performances very funny, but that's it. That's it for me. From now on, as a person, you're dead to me. Go off with your transvestite friend and do another Netflix special, but stay out of my face with your politics. Will Ferrell, 2 weeks in a row, congratulations, you're a dumbass. And then finally, this is my pick. This is my pick. I'll tell you right now, this is my pick for the dumbass of the week. For a couple reasons. She's a double dumbass this week. Leading up to the election, I'm not a fan of rap music. I don't like rap culture. I think it demeans and degrades people. Women are treated like hoes. All men care about is how much bling they wear, how much pot they can smoke. And a lot of people, I'm sorry, in rap culture are idiots. Not dumbasses, idiots. I mean, literally low IQ, low intelligence people. And there is not a better example of it than one, Cardi B. Cardi B, first reason she's a dumbass, and she's my dumbass of the week, is because she was at a rally for Kamala Harris, reading off a teleprompter. Now, I did not get verification on this part here. She supposedly was railing about, we need Kamala Harris to be president because the prices are too damn high. Last time I checked, she was vice president the last 4 years when the prices were too damn high. So I don't know how that makes any sense for Cardi B. But then, that's not even the reason why, number one reason why she's a dumbass. Her teleprompter went out in the middle of this rally speech, and she basically froze like a deer in headlights. You would think an entertainer, somebody who's used to lyrics and scripts, would be able to improvise. They're creative people, right? Isn't this what part of it is supposed to be? Is the ability to connect with people through your words, through your actions, at the spur of the moment. Well, obviously that doesn't apply to Cardi B because she froze. There was a huge pause, I believe a minute at least, where there's nothing being said. She didn't say anything. She just basically stood there at the podium, and then somebody brought her a phone that had the rest of her speech on it. So she sat there for the rest of her allotted time at the rally and read from her phone. So that's pre-election, dumbass Cardi B. Post-election, dumbass Cardi B. Of course, social media, the bane of our existence as a society. 5-minute rule, people. 5-minute rule. Don't just type in what pops into your head. Wait 5 minutes, and if you still feel that way, then you go ahead and type it and put it out there for better, for worse. So when the results of the election came down, Cardi B, of course, not very happy. But the one comment that I think really shows how ignorant and stupid and low class she is, referencing all the red states in the southeastern U.S. who voted for Donald Trump. I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm pretty close. She tweeted out, "This is why you all get hit with hurricanes." That's sick, that's stupid, and that on top of her inability to improvise without a teleprompter, that is why she is a double dumbass, and she is my choice for the Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week. And that's going to do it for the weekend edition, Sports Frenzy 2.0. We are done. Finished. Over. For 7 more days when it comes to pop culture. Now, as I mentioned, next week, Dave and I will review REO Speedwagon and Loverboy live in concert. We will review full season 1 of The Penguin, full season 1 of Teacup. Now, in terms of movies, I think we're just going to play it by ear. We'll watch whatever we want to watch separately, and then we'll start to figure out if we can put together some mutual reviews coming up for the rest of November. If you love sports like we do, don't forget we also do a sports edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. That hits every Thursday morning on the same podcast platforms that I mentioned a few minutes ago. But if you're just into the pop culture, the movies, the music, the TV, and the streaming, we'll be back doing this, your Saturday morning hangover cure, in 7 days. So until then, Dave's not here to say it. I'll say it. It's going to sound weird. Say goodnight to the kids, Maestro. Good night to the kids, Maestro.